Well, good.
So in order to be what they call a completer, you have to come to 10 of the 16 classes. And I forget what it's 60%, I think. Math isn't my strong point. I just know you have to come to 10 out of 16. I guess I could use a calculator, huh? 10 divided by 16.
I want to tell you that Janie is holding off on the exercises, but she says she still has your number.
Okay.
She'll get in touch with you when she gets ready. She's got a lot of things going on right now.
That's fine. I understand. I was actually telling somebody this morning, if they knew anybody that wanted to take a class, I had some extra tablets, but I was reserving that one for her. So I will write down hers as an extra tablet now that I know for sure. Okay, so if y'all know anybody, I mean, I know with SOWEGA, they'll have a certain tablet, and then with Heart, we have a certain tablet. But if y'all know somebody who's interested, I think we can make things work. I don't know why not. So anyway, when you come to for these classes, we have to have completers, and whenever we have our completers, then we can record it as a class. And so we give away these shirts when we have completers in our Tai Chi classes. And we try to have kind of prizes to encourage people to come to class so that we can get credit for it. It's just how the program works. So I'm always thankful to have committed people to the program. So today, do we want to do standing or do we want to do seated?
Whatever she wants to do.
Do you have a preference, Miss Ruth Ann?
Well, hey, could we do half and half?
Oh yeah, we can do half and half. We can definitely, we can do both versions of it. So whenever we're warming up, so each little section we'll do seated and standing. When we do warming up, standing, we walk around, open and close our hands, just general movement to get our bodies warmed up. Our bodies should be warmed up when we go to do exercise, and that lessens the chance of injury. So it's nothing real complicated or, high paced. It's just walking around, open, closing, bending our arms. Now, if we're seated, look at my knees right now. Okay, so I'm walking around, but I'm not really going high with my knees, am I? I'm just walking very slowly and easily. So, but if I sit down, my knees are already high because I'm at a 90-degree angle seated. So if I raise my knee, you see this position right here? If you do that position, man, you have to use a whole lot of leg muscle. It's as if you were standing up and lifting your knee like this, right? So if you're walking around like this, man, you're going to start sweating real fast. Your heart's going to really start getting beating fast, and you're going to get really warmed up. And so we want to keep that in mind when we're seated, that walking in place, lifting that knee up high, how that would look if we were standing. So that's why this movement right here, it really is a workout to sit here and lift those knees up high. Right. So that may be difficult. And so you might just not realize it. Hey, I'm sitting down and, I'm not doing a whole lot. Why is that so difficult? Why am I getting wore out? So instead of lifting your knees real high, you can just pick up your feet a little bit off the floor. That's still, to me, more muscle than if I were just walking like I was showing you. Because I'm really not lifting my leg. You know, I'm walking, but I'm really not lifting my leg. So what can you do? You could tap your toes. That gets blood flowing. Tap your heels. Okay. You can go heel, toe, just kind of rocking that foot. Mm-hmm. You know, that's movement. That's getting blood flowing. That's the only thing we're trying to do when we're warming up is to get blood flowing. So we can lift our heel and lift our toes, and then we can pump those arms, open and close our hands, just like we do whenever we're walking around. Mm-hmm. And this right here feels a lot easier than if we were to just really start lifting those knees, right?
That's what I'm doing now.
So sometimes people think, oh, just walk in place while you're seated. That's a lot more of a workout than I think people realize.
It is.
So, and if you want to sit here and raise those knees up and really pump those arms, by all means do it. It's not going to hurt you. It's just going to wear you out. And all you're really trying to do is just warm up your body.
Yeah.
So that's the warm up, walking around, warming up section, whether you do it standing, whether you do it seated.
Okay.
Also keep in mind that when it's cold, your body is cold. So it takes a little more to warm your body up. Now, before class, I came in here about an hour and turned on that space heater. So the air in this class would be warm. And so that helps your muscles be warm when you're in a warm environment. So the temperature in your room really does make a difference in getting your muscles prepared for movement. So keep those things in mind as you warm up for exercise. And it doesn't matter what kind of exercise, not just Tai Chi, but any kind of movement. You want to get a little bit warmed up. So I hear people talk about before they get out of bed, they'll be doing some movement in their bed to get kind of that blood flowing as they lay down, lifting their legs and pumping their arms out. So that's a possibility too. All right. Now, when it comes to our warm-up stretches, we do 2 for our neck, 2 for our shoulders, 2 for our spine, 2 for our hips, 2 for our knees, and 2 for our ankles. So 3 upper body and 3 lower body. Essentially, you know, our hips are kind of in the middle, but we'll call that lower body. So the first 3, neck, shoulders, spine, they're very easily done seated because there is no leg movements. Okay. When we stand, we always have that upright posture. We keep a soft bend in our knee. We don't lock our knees straight, but we have our weight on both legs. Excuse me. This is the time I always start to yawning, isn't it? So it has nothing to do with you. It's the circadian rhythm. So, and it's really warm in here. So we keep that soft bend in our knees, and we have our weight on both legs. So we'll do all the movements with our, our upper body to stretch those 3 parts, but we're not doing anything with our legs. So if you wear out easily, these are good ones to start seated. And then if you can, stand up to do the lower body ones. So the neck movements, whether you're seated or standing, here I have my feet shoulder width apart and I have good posture just like I was when I was standing. So seated or standing, you have your hand to the side. You bring those hands up, palms down. You bring it towards your chin or chest, push away from our bodies, and then follow with our eyes all the way down. We follow our hands. And you'll feel a little stretch in the back of your neck. So again, bring those hands up. Bring it towards your chin and chest. Push away from our bodies and then follow those hands all the way down. So some things to remember with this movement is when our hands come out, there's a soft bend here. So it may look like my hands are out, but they're not out. See the difference? There's that soft bend if you want to look. So I come out, but there's a bend in my elbow. We don't want to lock our joints. We want to keep that open joint, that soft bend. That's called a song joint, S-O-N-G. That allows energy to flow. So we bring them up, then we bring them towards our chin and chest, turn and push away, and follow those hands all the way down. So I'm feeling a little stretch right back here in my neck. You can add gentle resistance to that move. Of course, by bringing those hands up, you're moving against gravity. Then when you turn and bring your hands towards you, use a little extra muscle power. Pull towards you. Turn those hands and push away. And that's adding gentle resistance to the movement. Now, do you have to add gentle resistance? No. That's one of our principles, and we can focus on it and do it, or we can just do focus on other principles like movement control, like going slow and smooth as we make those transitions. We can focus on that movement control instead of the gentle resistance. So either way, it's up, towards, away, and down. That's for our neck. So by using our hands and adding that gentle resistance, that kind of makes it Tai Chi. Because we could just say chin to chest. That's the stretch we're doing. But it's Tai Chi, so doesn't that look much more Tai Chi when we do that movement with the chin towards the chest? Next movement for our neck. Remember, we look towards our shoulder. So this is the basis of the movement. We look towards the shoulder like we're looking over our shoulder, come back to the front, and then look over the other shoulder. That's the base of the movement that gets the job done of stretching our neck. But because it's Tai Chi, we have hands that go with it. If we're seated, remember we have good posture. Our feet are grounded on the floor, about hip width apart. Nothing else happening with our feet as we do this movement. Bring the hands up and towards, just like the first one. And when we get here, we drop one towards our hip or our lap. It looks different seated than standing. Now we're going to follow this hand as if it were a mirror. Follow it as we look towards that shoulder. Come back to the front. Switch hands. The other one comes to our lap, and this one moves to the side as we look towards that shoulder and back to the front. Standing, it doesn't look very different. Here. Follow, front, switch, follow, and we just go until we feel a slight stretch. So nothing, we're not pushing it as far as we can go. We're not doing anything to hurt ourselves. We're just feeling a slight stretch and then coming back to the front. Now, one difference that I feel seated versus standing, when my hand's in my lap and I'm here, it's kind of hard to do anything with this hand when it's on my lap. Now, if it's over here by my hip, like when I'm standing, what I can do is this. So I'm following this hand, but this hand is gonna pull back. So it pulls the shoulder back. So this shoulder is being pulled because I'm moving it and looking towards it. And this shoulder is being pulled back whenever I bring that hand, that elbow back a little bit. So it looks like this. So do y'all feel the difference between the two? If I'm just leaving my hand here, following that hand, I feel that little stretch in my neck, switch, a little stretch in my neck. But if I pull this elbow back and pull that shoulder back as I do that move, I feel the stretch in my neck and a nice stretch across my chest.
Yeah.
Either way is right. One's just bumping it up a notch and making it more of a stretch. Now, if you think about that movement we do that's called single whip, it's very much like what I just did. I push my hands out, turn them away, and then separate them. I'm following one hand with my head, but I'm opening both. So you see how similar those movements are. One is here, and one is here.
Yeah.
But you feel that similar stretch. So that's one thing I think where Dr. Lamb is so smart, because all of our warm-up moves match up to our Tai Chi moves. And so we can, we're prepared when we get to those movements to do even more of that stretching of our joints, which helps us become more flexible, and that improves our mobility. So side to side, whether you're standing or sitting, you can pull that other hand back, that shoulder, that elbow, however you want to look at it, as you also stretch your neck. So those are two different ways to do each of those stretches to make it more, but you don't have to. All right, those two are for our necks. Is there any questions about those movements?
No.
We have shoulders next. So on shoulders, we have our hands to our sides, and we roll our shoulders forward, small circles, think size of a quarter, and then we roll those shoulders back. So that's kind of like a massage you give yourself. When you roll forward, it kind of feels awkward. And the reason why is our shoulders aren't supposed to be rolled forward. You know, if we ever walked around like this, what would our mamas tell us?
Straighten up.
Straighten up, pull those shoulders back. So that's why it feels awkward. That's why we don't feel like that feels right. But as soon as we roll those shoulders back, we feel that nice warm-up movement of that shoulder joint. It feels like a little massage for those back muscles, and it feels much more natural. So that's what it looks like seated, here and here. If we do, when we do this standing, I like my hands touching my legs and thinking about drawing a circle about the size of a quarter. See, when you're seated, your hands are kind of dangling down. So you don't have legs to draw that circle on. So standing, we draw the circle forward as we roll our shoulders forward, and then we draw the circle back as we So not very different from standing to seated, but I do like having my hands on the sides of my legs, kind of thinking about drawing those circles. The other shoulder exercise We have our hands to our sides. We're going to bring our hands up, palms up, and then we're going to push our hands down, palms down. So I call it a big shoulder circle. We bring up and down, up and down. Of course, that's how you do it seated. I feel like my legs are in the way whenever I'm doing that movement seated. So standing, we come up and then we push down, and I can make that full circle because my legs aren't in the way. My legs are straight. So we come up, palms up, and I like to inhale as I bring them up and then exhale as I push down. So that's a way to practice our breathing, our diaphragmatic breathing. It's also a way to practice our gentle resistance. So we bring them up and down, up and down. So even though I like to do it standing because my legs aren't in the way for me to come down and go through that full circle, one thing I like about doing it seated is I can focus, or I can close my eyes and just focus on my breathing. See, if I'm standing up, I don't want to close my eyes. But when I'm in a chair and I'm supported by that chair, I don't have to worry about falling over like I do when I'm standing. So I can close my eyes and just really focus on breath as I bring those hands up and down. And I can make that circle small. So I can This is a great way to practice relaxation. So I know there are times when we have stress or we're ramped up about something, you know, we all have times of worry, and sometimes we can let that kind of play on our minds and take control. And so one way we can combat that is to take time to just focus on breath, close your eyes, focus on bringing in air, focus on letting that air go, and that gives your mind a break so that you can experience a little stress-free breathing. So that's why I like to do it seated, is just to be able to focus on breath. Those are for our shoulders. Any questions about those two?
Nope.
Okay. Next is our spine. So this is our third upper body. And so remember I said the top three major joints can very easily be done seated because there aren't any leg movements. This involves our ball. So we have our ball, and we're going to what we call separate the heavens and the earth. We push one hand towards the ground, and the other hand comes up and pushes towards the ceiling at the same time that we're pushing towards the ground. And you notice there's still that soft bend in my elbow. It's easier to see that one, maybe a little more difficult to see the one that's pushing down, but the bend is still there. I'm not locking my joints like that. And that's to allow that energy to flow. Our focus is stretching the spine. We're not trying to stretch the arms or elbow. So we come from our ball, the hand that's on top pushes down. The hand that's on bottom of the ball comes up and pushes up. So we come back to our ball and switch. Back to our ball, switch. I like to inhale as I come to my ball and exhale as I separate. That always makes my stretch a little bit more. Standing, it looks the same. Have our ball, switch, stretch. So you see, our lower or our upper body stretches, they don't change a whole lot from standing to seated.
Okay.
Our next spinal exercise, so that stretches our spine vertically. Our other stretch for our spine is for horizontal stretching. So we have our ball and we go in the direction of the hand that's on top. So I bring my ball just above that leg, switch my hands, and come back across. Switch, come across. Switch, come across. Make sure you're not keeping any tension in your shoulders, because it'd be easy to pull those shoulders up as you're holding your ball, but keep those shoulders relaxed as you go side to side. And don't go very far. Stay within your frame. Don't go way over here, because then you start twisting. It might hurt your back. Also, you might fall out your chair if you go too far. It's easier to see and feel when you're seated, because you feel that buttock pull off of your chair as you go too far. It's not as obvious when you do it standing, because one, you can't see your leg even out of your peripheral, and nothing's keeping you from going over here. But still, you may stretch your spine, you may feel your knee kind of pulling. So I think it's a great idea to do this movement seated, because it really allows you to have body awareness and when you've gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this movement right here, which one of our moves is like this one? You think of what it's called? Waving hands in clouds.
Yeah.
You knew it. You're it was on the tip of your tongue, wasn't it, Miss Linda?
Yep.
Yeah.
You probably thought, as many times as I've heard it, how did I not know it right away?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a problem with that.
It's okay. I do too. And I won't even tell y'all all the stories of some of the stuff I've done or said or forgotten. Whew. So it is a torso movement. Our legs stay still as we move the top part of our body side to side. In our warm-up, it's a ball. In waving hands in clouds, it looks like this. So one hand is on our lap like a drum. Not really on our lap, just hovering over that leg. The other hand's cross body like a sash. Turn and switch. Turn, switch. So that's waving hands in clouds, but the warm-up movement is the ball. So we go towards the hand that's on top of that ball. Standing, it looks the same way. Side, switch, side, switch, side. So now we've gotten to where it gets complicated. I mean, not complicated, just different for our lower body movement. So I'll do the standing and then the seated. So the standing for our hip starts here. Our feet are about shoulder width apart. Our weight's on both legs. We're going to shift the weight to one leg. Doesn't matter which, because we'll do the other one next. We're going to lift the other foot, place the heel forward or out in front of us. When that foot is forward, we have our hands back. So from the side, it looks like that. Mm-hmm. Then we pause in the middle, and then we put our toe back. Now, when we put our toe back, remember it's at an angle. So it's not straight back. If I were to put it straight back, see, I feel myself wobbling now. That is the same as having my feet right beside each other. So we put it back. It's just like a kickstand on a bike. It kind of goes out, but it's back. So it's hard to see from the side, but that's the movement. It's back, but it's to the side. So if my foot's back, my hands are forward. Pause in the middle, my heels forward, my hands are back. That's a counterbalance. Now, there's a couple ways of doing this move standing. Then I was holding all my weight on one foot as I moved this foot. Generally, I do 3. Okay, so I do 3 in a row. That really helps the endurance of our leg holding our weight. So I do it 3 times, switch to the other leg, and heel forward, hand back, pause, toe back. That works on the endurance of that leg. That's a lot to ask our leg to hold our weight for 3 leg swings, isn't it?
I must be doing something wrong.
What you think?
The backs of my knees. It hurts the back of my knees. Maybe I'm stretching it too far out.
Try coming in just a little bit. You may it shouldn't hurt, but if it feels like it's stretching, it may be because those muscles are really tight back there. So you may need to do a little bit more of that movement to help stretch it, or maybe a little more warming up, walking around, getting those muscle warms up. And then that, a lot of times will stretch easier when they're warm. But it shouldn't be pain, but it may feel like tight almost. Mm-hmm. But to go back and at that angle, I'm really pushing the limit here, and I can feel a lot of muscle stretching versus just tapping it back to the side just a little bit and leaving it loose a little bit, and that feels differently. So just play around with how far you tap it back and what you think feels the most stable, safe, and comfortable. That's one way to do it, is leaving your weight on one leg and doing the 3, well, I call them leg swings. That's what it reminds me of from dance, is like swinging my leg like that. Tap and tap.
I've done got too old for that now.
Like leg swing. So yeah, that's what it reminds me of, but it's not technically a leg swing. But another way to do it, and this gives us more practice with weight shifting, is to shift to one leg, do the heel, pause, toe, come back to center, shift the weight, and then do the other leg, heel, pause, toe. Come back to center, shift, heel, toe, or heel, pause, toe. So there we're doing 1 at a time, and we're shifting in the middle. So doing the shifting in the middle gives us more experience with the shift. And it's that weight transfer that helps us build strength for balance. So that may work better for you to do 1 at the time and switch, and then switch. And then later on, try just holding all your weight on one leg as you do the 3. So that's 2 different ways of doing it standing. And either one is fine. If both work for you, if you like both, do one way, and the next time do it the other way. Okay. And switch it up, and that gives your body a different experience doing the same movement. Now, seated is a little different because I can place my heel forward with my hands back. I can pause in the middle. but I cannot put my toe back there.
Right.
If I do, I'm gonna fall out the chair, aren't I?
Yeah.
So you could maybe scooch to the edge of your chair and hold on real tight and pray that you don't fall off. But that's not how we do it whenever we're seated.
Mm-hmm.
When we're seated, we have upright posture, our feet shoulder width apart, and we place the heel forward with our hands back. Oh, goodness. And then we bring our hands up and just have our foot at the seated position, right? So heel forward, hands back. Come to seated positions, bring those hands up. Here, 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 here.
Get back. Get back.
Now this is good for your knees, a little bit your hips.
Exercise. Go.
But I tell you, one place I feel it is in my shoulders from moving my hands up and back. Now, when we're standing, then it's a counterbalance. So I can, when I put my hands back and my foot is forward, then that keeps me from falling.
Right.
And whenever when my hands are, hold on, my hands are forward, hands back, that's a counterbalance. Here, heel forward, hands back. So that's the counterbalance. We don't necessarily need that when we're seated because the chair's got us. You know, we're not falling out the chair. So those are the different ways to do that hip warm-up stretch. The other hip warm-up stretch shifts weight from one leg to the other. So we shift the weight, lift and tap the toe out. We bring it back, shift, lift and tap. Bring it back, shift, lift and tap. Our hands are stacked like this and they go in the direction of the weight shift. So if I'm shifting to this leg, my hands go in that direction as I shift the weight. Once the weight is shifted, then I tap that foot out. Bring it back, shift, tap, switch, shift, tap, shift, tap. So that's the stand-up version. The sit-down version looks different. You can understand why, because when I sit down, I'm not going to tap my foot out. My hip is going to pop out of place if I were to keep doing tapping that foot out. Matter of fact, my back just popped whenever I did that. So that movement seated looks like this. So we still have those hands stacked and going into the direction of what I call the weight shift, because when you do this movement, oh, let me back up to the other one where we were here and here. Whatever leg you're moving, push that other leg into the floor, and that helps it be more stable for you to move this one. And you can experience that. Push it into the floor and move this. And that makes the moving leg a little bit easier to move, doesn't it? So push into the floor as you go heel, back, switch, heel, back. So pushing into the floor is helpful. So here we're going towards the direction of the weight shift, but it's towards the direction of the foot I'm pushing into the floor. I push this foot into the floor, the opposite leg is going to lay out. So I'm just laying that knee to the side. My foot is laying to the side. and I really feel a stretch in my hip. Do y'all feel that? A nice stretch in your hip as you lay that knee to the side. Looks like that.
Yeah.
Bring it back up. Now push that foot into the floor as you go that direction and lay that knee. Switch. Shift. Switch. Shift. So this right here is for our hips, and you should really feel that stretch in your hips as you lay that knee to the side. Now, when we stand, it is a different movement. So I see the value in doing this standing to practice endurance and weight shift. Even if you skip the hands, hold on to your chair and use this chair. That's your stabilizer. Shift weight, tap out. Or have your chair nearby just in case.
Oh, okay. Because you can't do that with your hands going to
you skip the hand movement.
Right.
So that's for people who are scared they're going to fall.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe this person has been doing all the Tai Chi seated, and they're like, I want to try to do some standing. Maybe I'm not going to do all of it, but I'm going to try some of it. So, okay, I got this chair. It's going to help me make sure I don't fall. So if I kind of lose my balance, I can lean into it, and I'm not going to fall. Instead of just stepping away, no chair at all, go to shift the weight, and then you lose your balance. So it's nice to have a wall nearby. This table is a good height to lean on. But the weight shifting, that's what makes your muscles strong. Holding weight on one leg helps improve the endurance. So there's value in doing it standing, whether you're skipping the arm movements and holding the chair or doing those arm movements side to side for the sake of strengthening our muscles. But when we sit and do that movement where we push one leg into the floor and lay the other one out and really feel this stretch in our hip, that can help us in a different way. Anytime that we're stretching our joints, stretching our muscles, it helps us be more flexible, which improves our mobility. Anytime we're stretching our muscles, we are reducing tension. Our muscles get all tight, and we got to stretch them. If you've ever had knots in your back, it's typically because you have not stretched, and you get real tense and stiff. Sometimes you get knots. It'll be muscles binded up. So this movement right here really stretches that hip flexor. Sometimes you have back pain because your hips are too tight. Sometimes you have back pain because your hamstrings are too tight. I think we take stretching and just kind of push it off to the side because it's, maybe not challenging for us, but it's so important to do those stretches. That right there stretches that hip flexor. And that's kind of a mild version of what they call the butterfly. You ever seen little kids sit in the floor and their feet touch each other and they'll have their knees pushed all the way down to the ground? Kids are flexible, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they, that's this is the easy version of that butterfly stretch. So those two are for our hips. The one where we heel, center, and then lay out, up, lay out, up. Those are the seated versions for our hips. Do you have any questions about those? Because I know as we do our lower body, you see there were two different versions of both of those. It didn't look the same seated as it did standing. Same thing's going to go with our knees. So for our knees, we keep a loose fist. So anytime we make a fist in Tai Chi, it's as if we're holding an egg that we do not want to break. So we never really clench our hands. Just imagine, and you may have arthritis in your hands, but if you have arthritis, you don't want to squeeze your hands. That will hurt. So we keep a loose fist. And so with our knee movement, we have a punch. And when we punch out, remember, we keep the soft bend. We punch, we bring it back, and punch. So what do our legs do? All right, we shift, lift, tap, and punch. Bring it back, shift, lift, tap, and punch. That's the standing version of our first knee warm-up movement. Or stretch, or kind of stretches, movements, warm-ups. So what we do every time. So that's what the standing version looks like. The seated version is not real different. We put that toe out there and back, toe out there and back. And remember, the foot you're not moving is pushed into the floor so it can be a stabilizer for you. Just like that. So it doesn't look real different. And you don't have to worry so much about tapping your toe onto the floor as just moving that leg forward as you punch the opposite hand. So that's the first knee. The second knee involves us stepping out. So we shift the weight, we step heel toe, shift and punch, bring it back, shift, step. I'm going to keep both heels on the floor as I shift weight to that front foot, bring it back, side by side. See?
Okay.
Now we can't do this seated, can we? We can't step out of our chair. We're not going to be able to step and shift and come back. We'll fall out. So what do? Well, I'm going to scoot back in my chair a little bit so that my leg is being supported by this chair. I'm going to put my heel out and punch. Bring it back. Heel out and punch. So the foot that's not moving, pushing into the floor as I put that heel out. My knees are sounding like tater chips today. That's awful. I don't like that sound. So that's the movement seated. Do you have any questions about either knee exercise? All right. Now we have our ankles. So with our ankle movement, there's no upper body movement. So we typically hold our hands here. We shift our weight and we go heel toe, rocking that foot. We bring it back, shift the weight, heel toe. So just like when we did that, tap that toe out, it's a little bit of an awkward move. So we just rock that foot,
Mm-hmm.
heel toe. Or we can scooch back in our chair to where our chair supports our leg and just roll those feet in a circle. It's all about mobility of our ankle joints. So we can go heel toe in the air, and we can go side to side, just like windshield wipers, or make the complete circle counterclockwise and then clockwise. And you feel that all the way up your leg to your knee as you're moving feet in circles. That really helps that ankle stretch, get some blood flowing, just like we were talking about warming up.
Right.
And you can feel it stretching up your leg, your shin muscle.
Uh-huh.
Now, standing, our second ankle movement is big toe, little toe, side to side, just like that. Little toe, big toe.
Mm-hmm.
So that is standing and seated of all of our warm-ups.
Okay.
Now, when we're doing our basic 6 movements seated, we've talked about our legs, how we can push one, release, push the other as we go through the movements, or we can just leave them planted shoulder width apart as we have good posture and go through the movements. So those movements look like this. And commence. Open, close. Single whip. Waving hands in clouds. Open, close. Single whip. Waving hands in clouds. Open, close. Close it out. So that's the seated version. The standing version of our basic 6. Here we go. And commence. Open, close. Single whip. Waving hands in clouds. Open, close. Single whip. Waving hands in clouds. Open, close. Close it out. So that's our standing version. Now we cool down.
When you first start that doing the what you call it, the clouds.
Waving hands in clouds.
Yes. Which side do you start? Do you start on the right side?
You go to the right first and then to the left.
Okay. All right.
right in the left.
And it's 6 times, right?
Yes, ma'am. I'll tell
Okay.
you what, since I've been counting to 6, I have got it right, but 3 just didn't work for me. So we cool down by punching ourselves in the leg, giving ourselves a nice little fist massage. Helps break up lactic acid. We can bring our knee up as we punch. We can punch behind us if that feels good. Then we gather tension and let it go. Gather, really feel what that feels like and let it go. We don't want to live that way. Tense and release. Tense and release. Big shoulder circle. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Then we take our right fist that represents our strength. Our left fingers together are humility. Our thumb in, our left fingers together is our friendship. Our thumb in is our humility. So we have strength, friendship, humility, and we put those together in mutual respect. We say namaste.
Okay.
So that's seated and standing versions of our warm-ups and our basic 6 movements. So of course, this video has been recorded. It will be on the YouTube page with the date. So today is December the 5th. It will say SOWEGA, December the 5th, p.m.
Right.
So you can have that to come back to and look at. So be looking in the mail. I'm going to send you your t-shirt. We'll restart class January 9th. If you know anybody that wants to take it, send them my way or send them to SOWEGA, however is the best way to communicate. And if y'all need me in the meantime, just give me a call, okay?
Okay.
All right. You have a Merry Christmas.
Yes.
You too. Thank you. I love y'all.
Love you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.